Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. And I know you guys are probably getting a little bit of fatigue from, all this coverage of the Charlie Kirk thing. And I think that's by design. I think that they're throwing a lot at us, a lot of scenarios and these things. We're going to try to distill a little bit of that today, but then we're going to start moving on from all of that. We are going to talk about Trump now designating NASA as a spy agency. So no more space exploration. Literally, I couldn't even believe the headline. I had to do a double take on it to see what this was all about. But they are absolutely ramping up to something very, very dark and evil. I believe they are preparing for the return of Jesus Christ. And so now this is all about controlling all of us while looking up and waiting for him to return. And of course, that will be the Great War of Armageddon. So I believe we are getting very, very close. We're also going to cover today a SpaceX Coke bust. Yes, you heard me correctly. A Coke bus labeled with SpaceX all over it. And also, we're going to cover a little bit of this event that went down with Patel and him basically now saying that there's no evidence that Epstein trafficked women. If you can believe that. All being swept under the rug. But before we get into that, I do have a couple of quick updates on the whole Charlie Kirk thing, some clarifications, because I know we've looked at a lot of information. So we're going to try to distill some of that down today for you guys. And we now apparently know that the object, let's take a look at this image here. The object that we saw at the back of Charlie's head in this particular frame right here has to be his earpiece that popped off. That's likely what this was. We were a little bit confused at first because you see this thing here, but you don't see it here. This was likely his earpiece. But this large black dot above the back of his head over his right ear is still unexplained. And we now know that the item on his chest was a microphone. And we know that this black dot is not the microphone because we saw the black dot race across and shoot off to his left. So it was nowhere near the right ear. Now, I guess you could say this could have been the magnet underneath, but a lot of people say that the mic on his chest was clipped to his chest. I mean, it could have been a magnet underneath. Who knows what this thing was? But I wanted to give some clarification. Now, if this isn't anything like the magnet or, the mic or anything like that, then we could literally be looking at a bullet entry over the right ear. Now, most people who know about ballistics, I have been looking at some videos on YouTube, and there are some people that are very experienced with ballistics, former military and things like that. They believe that the entry wound came from this right side, went into this right side, and that the neck wound was an exit wound. But they believe it was from a much smaller caliber rifle, not the 30-06 from the front. So they believe that the shot came from over Charlie's right shoulder, and I tend to agree with them, and the neck wound was the exit wound. So those are the kind of the videos I'm starting to align with. If you believe this whole event was real, if you don't, then that's fine too. But the people that looked at this also saw a muzzle flash over his right shoulder that seemed to line up exactly with the trajectory that I'm showing you right now, from over his right shoulder through his ear and down through his neck. But the only problem with that was the muzzle flash seemed to have some kind of delay, suggesting that it was from much further away. But there were no other elevated positions over the right shoulder other than that particular area. So it kind of limited it. So, of course, if you go with this theory, it does rule out the under the folded arm virtual reality shooter that we covered yesterday, because he was at a much lower angle, right? And he would have had to have shot from under his arm through the middle of Charlie's right back in order for it to come out of his neck, right? and that's not a desirable shot. So I'm starting to think that we can rule out the under the arm, folded arm virtual reality shooter that we looked at yesterday. Now, there are some other updates. Apparently, Charlie Kirk's wife was in one of Trump's beauty pageants. There's too many connections, you guys. This is getting really weird. She was actually in Donald Trump's beauty pageant. So we have Charlie's father and wife connected to Trump. This kind of reinforces my theory that she was put in his life. I don't want to call it a handler because some people might think that's insensitive, but she does have connections to the Juice Club and went to Romania and was with a particular group and was accused of being responsible for missing children that never got looked into. You can go down that rabbit hole yourself, but it is confirmed that, in fact, she was in Donald Trump's pageant. So now we have a connection between Charlie's father, who built Trump Tower, and his wife, who was in Trump's beauty pageant. And there are some very questionable details surrounding how she met Charlie in the very beginning. She was supposed to work with him, and then allegedly she said, "We're not going to work together. I'm going to be your girlfriend." And then the rest was history. Now, I'm not trying to slander this woman. These are just facts of things that have been said. Some of it's alleged, but you can look into all this yourself and find out what that's about. Now, let's move on from this and take a look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is not good. She's falling back in line with Trump and this whole right-left paradigm, blaming the Democrats. Now, for Kirk's death, I knew it was only a matter of time. She seemed to be on the right side of things when she was demanding the Epstein files be released and the whole MAGA uprising. But just like I said would happen, this whole Charlie Kirk thing has now solidified the MAGA base back under Trump, or at least is starting to. That was their goal. So they would stop asking for the Epstein files and just go along with the program. And so now Marjorie Taylor Greene is basically spouting the same propaganda that Trump is, that this was all because of the left-wing radicals. And I just don't believe that for a second. So we have another LARP. Unbelievable. When are we going to figure this out? That both sides of government are both working together to advance the secret agenda. It's not so secret anymore. They're telling us what they're doing. The technocracy, artificial intelligence, data centers everywhere, a web of control, pseudo martial law that's already happening right now under all of our noses as Trump marches through the major American cities, skirting the line of posse comitatus. And in fact was found guilty of skirting that line in D.C. Judge ruled, hey, you can't do that. Involved in activities that military is not supposed to be involved in. Even having the military in a major city, I don't care what the reason is, to me is already far over the line. And that is what's happening here. Regardless of whether or not you think what happened was real, that is the end game. It's distraction to get us all looking over here while they are stepping over lines, controlling us with artificial intelligence. Now, there have been some huge changes going on. I couldn't even believe this headline happening with regards to fake space. And I had to do a double take on this one. You ready for this? Trump just passed an executive order. And he says NASA is no longer a space agency. It is now a spy agency. Trump administration issued an executive order late last month quietly declaring that NASA will operate as a national intelligence and security agency going forward. Now, understand they were already doing this. They just weren't public about it. They've always been a national intelligence and security agency. The order stipulates that the agency will now have as primary function, you guys, intelligence, counterintelligence, investigate, and national security work. It's a major departure for the agency, which is historically focused on space exploration. Now, here we go with this big black hole. See, they've run out of things that they can tell us that they're going to do. People are like, show me the money. Show us where all these this $1 trillion has gone for space exploration. Heck, by now we should be able to hop on a bus and go to Mars if it were possible, right? With all this money that's been spent on this, they should have buses busing people, right? I mean, let's get serious about this. So they're running out of things. They're running out of, things to make us go, ooh, there's an incoming object. Oh, if it wasn't for NASA, we wouldn't be able to see it. Ooh, it's got a mind of its own. It's got its own intelligence. And they keep it going, and everyone stays interested in space. And then you've got, science fiction, which makes people wonder about space, right? And I'll admit, I was a science fiction junkie. I kind of still am. But I just laugh now when I see these movies of deep space exploration. Because here we are. Nothing's changed. The only thing that they've given us are these rovers that they say are on these other planets collecting all this stuff. And I don't believe that either. By now, we should have people run. We should have entire cities on Mars if it were possible. But we don't. And so here we are. Dozens of years later, and really, we're no further along than we were to begin with. Now, what else is going on? Well, there's no mention of science and exploration stuff. NASA Watch founder Keith Cowing, a former scientist at the agency who now closely follows its internal and external politics, wrote in a blog post, there are signs that Trump's intentions behind the order were at least partially related to labor concerns rather than spacecraft. Now, remember, what happened to Artemis? What happened to Project Artemis? It was supposed to be the return trip to the moon. What happened to the moon? What happened to Mars? Do you see how they just continue to bait us into spending more and more tax dollars and voting for their empty promises? Remember how many people were so excited when Trump's like, we are going to return to the moon. The moon is within our grasp. Project Artemis. Then they showed us this figure eight. We're going to do it like this. We're going to use the slingshot maneuver. The slingshot. We're going to slingshot around the earth and project us onto the moon. Man will be. And then there was this whole JFK vibe. And then look, crickets. It's crickets. And I don't even know if I'd believe it if I saw it at this point. They can AI anything. They're probably just waiting until the AI is perfectly. And you know what? Next time they go up there, why don't they put a camera? Why don't they get us a real camera? Why do we get all these fuzzy images of everything? We're supposed to live in the digital era. This should be crystal clear. Oh, Casey, they only have limited space. Yeah, I've heard all the excuses. They're probably not putting anything. They're probably not doing Artemis because, I came up with a good idea. I was like, why don't they put a beacon on the moon? If they can really go there, all we need to see with all the $1 trillion we spent, put a beacon on the moon that flashes so everybody with an amateur telescope can see it. It's not hard, you guys. It's not hard. Oh, they can't do that, Casey. You have no idea you don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I do. If you can see from a satellite lights at night on Earth, then you should be able to see a beacon on the surface of the moon. Now, I guess we always see the bright side of the moon, but when the moon turns into a partial moon, you would be able to see that beacon blinking, right? When you have a sliver moon, you're going to see the beacon blinking. Gosh, it's like a tongue twister. The beacon blinking beaker. Okay, I give up. In the dark part of the moon. It's not rocket science, but people make it complicated because that's their mind trying to figure out a way to figure it out. It's like with, and I was trying to tell a friend, because these things that happen, like with Charlie Kirk, they do offer an opportunity to reveal the madness that people will believe. But you got to be careful how you approach these things because these situations are loaded with emotion, right? So I got a friend and I'm like, dude, and my friend knows a little bit about hunting and guns because he grew up hunting and guns and rifles and all this. And I said, nobody saw him with a rifle when he jumped off the roof. So either he disassembled the weapon, which there was absolutely zero time to do that based on the footage that we saw, or he never had one to begin with. And I'm trying to explain this to someone that should understand all this. But he goes on to Google and he says, oh, he put it in his pant leg. You don't jump off of a roof with the pant leg with a rifle, a full rifle. You would break your leg. And obviously his knees were bent when he landed because you have to bend your knees to land. It would have ripped his pants wide open. Simple things like that. People will try to explain away in their brain because they can't believe there's a conspiracy. It's obvious that either one, there never was a rifle on the roof to begin with. That's the only explanation I can think of. Because he didn't have time to break it down. It takes a minimum 5 minutes to pull that barrel off. Minimum. And no, there were no 5 minutes. He instantly ran when the shot rang out. There was no rifle. But people can't figure it out because it makes their brain hurt. Or they're afraid to be called a conspiracy theorist for questioning the official story. And we haven't even got into why would he then reassemble the gun and leave it in the forest. We didn't get into that part yet. But yes, I believe the guy on the roof was just a distraction. I don't think he shot anything. I think the shot came over Charlie Kirk's right shoulder as we opened the show with. Now we have a spy agency. Well, who do you think they're going to be spying on? Well, yeah, they're going to pretend like they're spying on other countries. Oh, and Russia and China. See, I believe that this is going to be basically, this is like a soft threat to Russia and China. Well, we'll just turn our NASA into a spy agency. Instead of not a space agency, we're not a spy agency, NASA. And then everyone's supposed to go, ooh, we're afraid. And then they'll say they're going after drugs in Venezuela, right? Now, here's some more space madness. Police puzzled by 180 kilograms of SpaceX branded cocaine found at the crash site. Look at this. Is this a joke? Literally, cocaine is labeled with SpaceX. Now, this is weird. Now, I'm curious to hear your idea of what you think this is all about as I'm reading this story. An entire load packaged in SpaceX labels. Let's read this, and then you guys tell me in the chat what you think about this. A single-engine plane crash landed in a field of sugarcane in Brazil over the weekend, according to the local news, killing the pilot and leaving behind 180 kilos, almost 400 pounds of cocaine. So far, sounds like a tale of drug smuggling gone awry, except that the coke stacked together in neat bricks and wrapped in plastic, as shown in the video from local police, sported a distinctive label. The official SpaceX logo in blue and white, and giving this story a bizarre space-age twist. The plane crash occurred in the coastal city of Corupi on the Atlantic Ocean on Sunday afternoon. The deceased pilot was later identified as 46-year-old Timothy James Clark, an Australian businessman from Melbourne, who seemed to have worked in the country's mining industry as a pilot. So this guy was smuggling drugs. Photos from police show the crumpled plane with a blue-colored tail lying upside down in a field of shattered sugarcane. The craft was registered to the African nation of Zambia. Gosh, this thing's all over the place. We got Australians, Africans, Brazilians. Whoa. The case remains under investigation. Street value of the coke is unknown, but according to one recent estimate, it goes for about $1,500 per kilo in Latin America, meaning that the plane could have easily been carrying $250,000 in illicit cargo. Oh my gosh. There's little to indicate where the pilot was headed and why were the drugs branded with the SpaceX logo, but this isn't the first time that a brand affiliated with Elon Musk, the SpaceX CEO, has been slapped on some illegal drugs. Wow. A 2017 Forbes article highlighted how drug sellers were using tech company names such as TripAdvisor and Skype to brand illicit drugs to users. Musk's electrical vehicle company Tesla was a prominent example, with pills of MDMA often being pressed into the shape of its logo. The appeal of high-tech companies who have already paid millions for the best graphic design available as the image they wanted to be associated with their product as a natural fit. Wow. I don't know. Do you guys buy that cover story? That's just weird. Then they talk about Musk's reported worrisome drug use. Wow. SpaceX Dragon capsule. So there's this whole thing surrounding this. Let's look at these pictures again. SpaceX cocaine. Now, there is a twist to this that I'm wondering if you guys are going to pick up on here. What do you guys think is going on with these packages? And I'll kind of tell you what I think. You know, we've talked about this whole capsule and rockets being hollow needles, right? Filled with fuel. The dragon. How they fall from heaven. And a lot of this is metaphor for the fallen angels, isn't it? And syringes full of things to deliver a payload, right? So you gotta ask yourself if that's the angle they were going for. Super weird. Now, you guys ready for this? Got a couple surprises for you today. If you had any doubts in your mind that the right and the left are playing us by working together secretly, but then making us all hate each other and fight with each other over, oh, the Democrats did it. Oh, the Republicans did it. Well, look at this. Look who is all hanging out together, all cozied up. Jay-Z, Beyonce, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump out on casino night. What? Where were they? Atlantic City. Partying it up. Look at them. Woo woo. All hanging out in Atlantic City. Look at Beyonce's demonic dress. Let's pull it up here. Let's go through these pictures. That's Ivanka Trump's dress. And look at this. What the heck? She looks like a fallen angel. And then the sunglasses. Whoa, or like a raven or something. So creepy. So these people, whoa, the image has been removed. Responsive reporter, copyright holder. Interesting. Can't show that one. So here they are. They're all hanging out at Atlantic City casino night. Wow. Now, if you have forgotten, this is what makes this weird. Beyonce and Jay-Z, remember they publicly endorsed Kamala Harris? And remember Beyonce was performing at the campaign rally? And this is what Trump was on about. He was like, oh, we need to look into who paid for, Kamala Harris to hire all these people, wasting tax dollars. And then he goes on to build a $200 million ballroom that was paid for by private donors, right? So these people all work together. They're all in the same club. The rhetoric is just to get us all fighting about this stuff. That's what keeps us under control. But yeah, how did she go from performing for Kamala Harris to now hanging out with Trump's favorite daughter? That makes absolutely no sense to me. Well, it does make sense to me, but it shouldn't make any sense to you either. If you really look at what's going on here, and let me go back to you guys, see what's going on. Good morning, everybody. On a little bit of a rant today. Now, the point here is not to let these people get you riled up against each other. Because if they're only pretending to get riled up with each other to get you riled up, is it really worth getting riled up about this stuff? Probably not. Probably not. Now, what else is going on here? Well, ready for this one? Now, this one made me laugh out loud because according to Trump, you ready for this? Let's play this.
President of Venezuela called the strike on the boat illegal. Are you concerned that Maduro might escalate something?
the drugs that were on the boat and the drugs that are being sent into our country and the fact that 300 million people died last year from drugs. That's what's illegal.
Do you think he's not telling the truth when he said it was a fisherman's boat? Do you think that he's...
Oh, there. Give me a break. You could see it. You saw the bags of white everything right through the bags. It's nonsense. So we knew it before.
Yeah, to forget the fact that it was night vision and everything looks white in night vision. Oh, you could see the white. He's playing on the stupidity of people. So now, according to Trump, 80% of the Americans died from Venezuelan drugs. Now, he could have, of course, meant 3 million instead of 300 million. But the crazy part is, what about the millions who actually did die from the thing that shall not be named that he made? What about those people who you can actually look around and confirm that 1 out of 10 people you know just mysteriously died? Who, many of whom were healthy. Wow. Now I looked down here in the comments and I just almost peed my pants. I was like, this is hilarious. Let's read these comments. Sargio says, I'm still looking for the 1,500% savings on my prescriptions. I could sure use the $800 rebate from the drug companies for taking their medications. Hey, Trump, when does the savings kick in? Trump, promises made, none kept. Facts, especially numbers, aren't Trump's strong suit. Remember his 1,500% reduction in prescriptions. Trump misspoke. Yeah, I'm thinking he probably misspoke, but it's clear to me at this point what is going on here. You make a wild claim and most people will believe it. I'm sure that Carolyn Leave It Alone Levitt will have an explanation at the next press briefing. It's clear the president of all presidents, the president whose transparency supersedes all presidents before him, was speaking about the worldwide death toll that countries like Venezuela have waged since the inception of these illicit drugs and their entire history. And instead of nitpicking the president about trivial facts and figures, we should remain focused on the perpetrators of these illicit drugs that we are unable to tax, and that's why we need them off the streets. Oh, wait. That was Trump's personal notes to me. Okay, here we go. We should remain focused on the perpetrators of these illicit drugs and their effect on the destruction of the American family. And then we're all supposed to shut up and go, okay. Okay. We're having a little fun today. Now, Trump's foreign investment plan has backfired on him. Let's take a look. Trump learns his lesson on Hyundai a little too late. Now, in this case, I'm actually glad this happened. I'm glad that foreign investors can't come into our country and be given fast-track immigration status to steal American jobs. But all of this kicked off after the Hyundai plant raid that happened. And remember, all of these Hyundai workers that were South Korean nationals basically got deported. Well, apparently South Korea is running scared. They've now pulled 22 business ventures that they had planned in the United States because of this whole immigration mess. And Trump begged them back. He said, oh, why don't you just send us a skeleton crew to train American workers to do their jobs and then send them home? Now, who in their right mind do you know that would do that? You know, the entitlement we have sometimes as Americans is just, it's shocking. You know, we have the same thing here in our country where, oh, you're going to train someone to take your job. Really? No, I'm not. I'm not doing that. You find somebody else. No foreign investor in their right mind would send a skeleton crew to train Americans to steal their jobs. It's just not going to happen. It makes absolutely no sense unless there's some secret backdoor deal where they're making a bunch of money on the other end. So Trump derailed his own foreign investment project. Way to go, Trump. Now, let's get into this whole thing with Epstein. Let's get the Epstein update. Trump is deflecting again as he sends, I call him paid off in cash Patel, who's now trying to make Acosta the fall guy, taking the heat off of Trump again. And of course, yes, Acosta was complicit as well, covering this all up during the era when all this investigation into Epstein happened. But the problem is that still doesn't erase Trump not releasing the files. And to me, this whole strategy of blaming Acosta is stupid because Acosta is exactly who Trump hired in 2017 during his first term. So if Acosta was a bad guy back then and deserves all the blame, why did Trump hire him into his cabinet? You guys, this is a total clown show. Patel twice brought up Acosta, unprompted, including in his opening statement during Tuesday hearing. I'm here to testify the original sin in the Epstein case was the way it was initially bought by Mr. Acosta in 2006, which is why Trump hired him back in 2017, because of how poorly he handled things in 2006. Well, it doesn't say that, but this guy right here, you guys, paid in cash Patel, says now that there is no longer any credible evidence that Epstein even trafficked anybody. Okay, so then what is Ghislaine Maxwell doing in jail then? See the setup here? There's no evidence. No credible information that Epstein trafficked women to others. Says it with a straight face. Are you kidding me? So what about all the victims who were trafficked by Epstein to his rich friends? I would sure love to see that list. I hope they compile it. I hope they don't cave in to fear and threats. But I'm sad that they probably will. You guys are going up against the American government. Nobody survives that when they have you in their sights. I left the comment. You have to be kidding me. The victims say otherwise. Lies, lies, lies. Overwhelmingly, people see the lies. So why are these people still sitting up there if 99% of the American public knows they're lying? I don't know. That's a very, very good question. I don't know if you know this, but the Supreme Court just okayed racial profiling by ICE. Wow. So if you look Hispanic, you could be pulled over. Where are your papers? Without doing anything wrong. Racial profiling. Here we are, you guys. Now here's the last story. I want to clear up this this story about these men who were hanging. Oh, why is that doing that? So they found two Mississippi men found hanging. One was white, one was black. And there is some misinformation out there saying that the black man had broken arms and legs, but the authorities are saying that they did not see that to be the case. And this all is still under investigation. Some of you wanted me to look into this. So that's why I wanted to bring this up. Let's refresh this and see if there's an update to the story. Here's 2 minutes. Let's see. Let's go into this one here. This one. Okay, here we go. And this was on the same day. The guy on the right and the guy on the left. Trey Reed and Corey Zukatis. Now, they're thinking these both were suicides, but it is weird that they found them hanging. And they're debunking the notion that the black man had broken arms and legs. So apparently, this is misinformation they are saying. Now, I'm not saying that it is, but this is what they're saying. They're denying this. So, very, very weird, you guys. So I wanted to cover that as well. Okay, let me go back into the chat. Those were the headlines for today. And let's see what you guys are up to. Good morning. Is there anything you guys want to talk about today? Anything you want to double down on? The authority. Okay. Yeah, pure madness. Pure madness. I agree, Lee. God is not a respecter of persons, so please consider that. That is correct. I can't even believe he got up there and said there was no evidence that Epstein trafficked anyone, trying to wipe the slate clean. Now, I also heard that Bondi is now saying that essentially free speech is not protected. There are mass firings now. Now, I don't agree with what people are saying and how insensitive they're being and applauding the death of Charlie, if in fact he died. I'm not saying that I like that, but guess what? It is free speech. It should be illegal to fire someone from a job for how they believe, right? But yet that is happening right now in this country. Our own attorney general is saying that it's okay to fire people. I'm sure those people will sue. But what kind of precedent is being set here? So I don't believe the authorities in the case either. I don't see how I ever know, though. I agree with you, Sister Becky. I agree with you. The rumor came from somewhere, right? The rumor came from somewhere that his arms and legs were broken. So we'll have to, double down on that and figure it out, or try to anyway. It's getting harder and harder to find the truth, isn't it? So yeah, if hate speech is legal, then Trump would be in jail. Data centers, writing in priorities over water rights. Yes, water and electricity, causing our water and electricity costs to go up. We started covering this way back, like 3 years ago, you guys. We were talking about this, and I was warning about these data centers. We actually have a documentary in which I was warning about data centers. It's called Artificial Intelligence, the documentary. That was from like 6 or 7 years ago. We were talking about data centers and how they would take over. Well, here we are. They're everywhere now. Basically, AI is being prioritized over humans. Should have never happened. All right. Well, that's about all I had. I don't want to keep you guys on here. Some people were complaining about the length of the shows. I try to compact as much information as I can. I'm not on here to be on here all day, every day. That's not like the purpose here. I feel like we do keep the shows pretty short, but some people are like, hey, you could have said all that in 5 minutes. It's not that simple. Unless you run a YouTube channel, you'll never know that. But I do respect your time to watch other content. So, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to, have open this up for other discussions that you guys might want to have, because a lot of you don't have any other opportunities to be heard. Not a lot of YouTube channels come into the chat and just hang out and talk about what you guys want to talk about and acknowledge and recognize you on a personal level. So I always want to maintain that and continue to do that for you guys. Lorraine Ray says, don't listen. Yeah, we do live in a short attention span era. Everybody's all about TikTok and 2 minutes or less. You got 60 seconds to get to the point. Well, sometimes it takes a lot longer to get to the point, doesn't it? And this is a gathering. This is a group. We're having fun here. Like, it's not about, entertaining people all the time. This is about gathering together. It's like the people that go to church to get entertained. And they leave church and you're like, so what did you learn? I remember my mom used to ask me after church, well, so what did you learn? I'm like, and if I didn't have something I remembered from church service, oh, I got it, But, some people, you ask them, well, what did you like about the service? And they'll say, oh, the bass player was really good. Or, man, the way he spoke was amazing. Or I was filled with the Holy Spirit. And then they can't tell you exactly what was the substance of the service. It was all about how they were entertained, So, leave it alone, leave it. That was pretty funny, huh? We should be focused on the... Okay, I can't do it again. Yeah, that whole... Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the fear of the victims at this point? They literally believed, at least, that they watched someone be assassinated. They were like, wow, I think we're done. I can't believe they survived this long. Now, I truly believe there were many of those victims that were taken out silently. I can't prove that, but I believe there probably were some mysterious deaths. I mean, there were some, mysterious deaths surrounding Epstein, but I believe that many of the other people that we have not seen connected to this yet, the billionaires, the millionaires, probably had people taken out so that they didn't have to face the music. So, unfortunately, all this is being covered up. So, yeah, we got to lighten up. We got to try to like move past all this. I'm not trying to be insensitive to everything that just happened, but we do have to kind of try to snap out of it because, yeah, the last 10 years has shown us how great the deception can be, says Sister Becky. Like Russian model Roslana Krishnova in 2008. Yes. You guys remember that one show we did? And we were digging through the flight logs and I found a particular Russian model. And I started digging into it and I found this story on her from like years and years ago and on a website. And we showed that on the channel. And then I got that mysterious threat through Twitter. They said, you have two choices. Either you remove your video or we need to pay you a visit. Like I literally got threatened. So I had to take the video down. So there was something about that Russian model they didn't want us to know about, right? I can't even remember her name, to be honest with you. But for those of you that follow the channel, you remember that exact episode. And then I came back on after and I said, like, you guys, I had to take that down. I got talked to, let's put it that way. And it was very official. It wasn't some weirdo. It was definitely law enforcement. And what they told me was they were in the middle of an active investigation and I had brought up a name that was involved and they needed to protect the identity of this particular woman. That was the cover story I was given and I had to remove it. Otherwise, they were going to remove it for me and then there would be consequences. So, the stuff that we do here isn't just shooting in the dark. Sometimes we find real things that actually are actionable. They help us put together the puzzle pieces because we know that the authorities lied to us. They're going to tell us whatever convenient story they need to maintain power and control. And if the truth isn't convenient for them, they'll just make up a lie that they need us all to accept. So, do we want to live in a world of lies? Or do you want to have an authentic person who actually cares about the truth, digging for the truth, and us all working together to try to find the truth, right? So that's the difference. That's why we have to have alternative media, channels like this and others who are looking for the truth. We don't have an agenda here. Our agenda is you. You guys are the ones who I care about because you guys are like me. We're all the same. We represent the uncontrolled media. Now, when you get into these really large YouTube channels, they are definitely controlled. Now, I do want to address, I guess Candace Owens went on, gosh, she said some weird stuff, said she was a Mason for some group. Oh, she was angry. Now, it's weird because you see her doing Masonic hand signs, but she's also, quote unquote, exposed the Freemasons as well. In fact, was criticized. Freemasons came out and said, you can't say that about us. So it's weird. We're getting this mixed messaging. Why would she call herself a Mason? Now, she didn't call herself a Freemason. She called herself a Mason for a particular group that was associated with Charlie Kirk. But then the whole rest of the podcast, she literally went in and literally accused we're going to call him Boo Boo Yahoo Netton, of being responsible in some way, shape, or form for what happened to Charlie. She literally said that, and she was like, I am going to find the truth. So it was weird. Now, I don't follow Candace Owens, but I thought maybe I should check on her channel and see what she's saying about Charlie Kirk, because she was supposedly his, like, one of his best friends. Oh, and she pulled the gloves off. The gloves were off. She was like, Israel had something to do with this, and I know they did, and da-da-da-da. But then she mixed it in with all this other weird stuff, like this Mason comment she made. And then she also said Charlie was this close to converting to Catholicism. We all know that Catholicism is no bueno. So what's that all about? So I just wanted to touch on that as well. Now, these theories, now remember, when we first got on here minutes after this whole thing happened, I told you guys the shot looked like it came from the right side. We're on that from one of the first people to say that. It came from the right side. Now, I thought I was speaking in error, but no. It looked like his neck looked like an exit wound to me from the very first time I saw it. So then when they started with this whole thing of, oh, it came from the front, I was like, I knew that was wrong. And then it wasn't long after that, the day after that, is when we saw everything else. But wow, what a trip. Look up a video called Charlie Kirk Advocates for a Mystery Religion. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff he did in Charlie 1.0. I call it Charlie 1.0 because this was before the 3 weeks before his death. He was not aligned, let's say, with truth. He was firmly entrenched in the right-left paradigm. He firmly supported, hands down, Israel and all the bad decisions Trump was making. He was calling for Trump to go into all the American cities after DC. Yes, all that's true. And so much more. But in the last 3 weeks, he seemed to do a turnaround. He was saying something completely different. And, you know, he was talking, you definitely should watch the Candace Owens video that she did about it. And again, it's puzzling because I don't believe in Catholicism, and I don't obviously believe in Freemasonry of any kind. To even say you're a Mason of any kind, even if it's just a role that you're playing, to me is very suspect. But she goes over the fact that Charlie refused money. I guess Bibi offered him a bunch of money, but then he knew he was going to be in his back pocket. He didn't agree with what he was doing, going into Gaza and all these other things, and he refused the money. And then there were comments that she made that he was actually in fear for his life and all these other things. And she shows text messages and all these other things to kind of prove how it all went down before it happened. There was a huge argument. He was told to shut up. He was invited to Israel by Bibi, and she thought that that was a threat because she said the same thing happened to her, that she got invited, and she's like, she knew that was a threat. Same thing happened to him. And he's like, no, I'm not going there, and I'm not going to shut up. So there's a lot more to this, you guys. A lot more to this. Yeah, and he didn't say he was going to be a Catholic, but she, from her perspective, and see, this is where you get into the controlled opposition, right? Like, obviously, she's bought and paid for by the Catholics because she talks about it way too much. So if I was on here, you know, going, oh, yeah, we should all be Seventh-day Adventists, or, oh, yeah, we should all be JWs, you'd be going, that doesn't sound right, because it's all controlled, right? We are Christians here. That's what we are. We don't put labels on ourselves other than we believe in Jesus Christ. And so when someone puts a label on themselves, that's when you got to wonder, right? I don't even like to say the word conservative, but I'm trying to think of a better way to describe my belief system. That government should have as minimal amount of incursion into your life as possible. The land is ours from God. Shouldn't be a government in the middle of anything. Or very little things, right? So I shouldn't even say I'm a conservative because that carries connotations with it as well. So Oh, there's a video. He says we should pray to Mary, so maybe he was a little further along down the Catholic road than we thought. Wow. Thanks for that. Yeah, Mother Mary worship is no bueno. Yes, we're independent thinkers, trying to put the puzzle pieces together. All right, you guys, I guess we're going to pop off here now. Let you guys get on with your day. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. If I can figure out how to fix the page here. Oh, there we go. Take care, everybody. Much love.